What exactly is Sabrina's origin story? Is she a river goddess attested in ancient sources and archaeological evidence? Is she a relic of a lost oral tradition, or is she perhaps a fanciful figure invoked to personify the River Severn for entertainment? Unfortunately, as with many deities across Britain, Sabrina and her beginnings in ancient history remain obscure. Yet, approaches towards uncovering the goddess have often been reductionist, assuming the form we know her as today existed unchanged many years ago within ancient communities. Before we go any further, I just want to say that I am but a humble Englishman, and this script was provided by a brilliant Welsh author by the name of Brett Hollyhead. When it comes to some of the Welsh words in this video, I'm doing my best to give you all the correct pronunciation, however I will inevitably get some wrong, though hopefully not wildly so. We have a podcast with Brett all about Sabrina, so give that a watch to hear all these beautiful words spoken by a native Welsh speaker. With that said, on with the rest of the video. But water continuously changes, flowing through the land as a representation of nature's impermanence. Her origins are complicated and contradictory, yet combined they give us a clear picture of the riverine goddess. Just like the River Severn contains multiple tributaries that flow into the river to give it form, so too does Sabrina contain many origins, names, and beliefs. Sabrina is a deity that expands beyond one singular definition and encompasses a vast assembly of divine sources, stories, and customs that connect all people past and present to her waters. The notion of divinity is complex, especially since each one of us have a unique perception and understanding through our own encounters. But these personal revelations we experience with the gods captures their essence and allows us to form deep and meaningful connections with them, even when the foundations of their origins have been eroded by the river of time. For the gods are meant to be felt, to be experienced with the heart and soul. Sabrina is the ruler of the living body of water that is the River Severn, with autonomy and a vibrant personality that shifts through the seasons. Like many others, we know all too well her temperament, one day providing nourishment and destroying it in fits of rage the next. If we do look back at her history, her most popular story is littered with vindictiveness and violence, resulting in the drowning of an innocent. In 1136, the medieval cleric and chronographer Geoffrey of Monmouth fashioned together the History of the Kings of Britain, a pseudo-historical piece that claimed to lay the foundation of British history and civilization, and which contains the first literary origin of Sabrina, where he referred to her as Hafren. Geoffrey claimed to have translated his work into Latin from a mysterious book in an ancient British language, given to him by Walter, Archdeacon of Oxford. This was basically the medieval version of Trust Me Bro when asked for his sources. No evidence has been found of this book's existence, leading many to believe that Geoffrey's sources of inspiration were derived from his predecessors. This includes On the Ruin of Britain by Gildas in the 6th century, The Ecclesiastical History of the English by Bede in the 8th century, and The History of the Britons by Ninnius in the 9th century, as well as various additional texts and the medieval oral culture of Monmouth stitched together by his vivid imagination. Nevertheless, his composition of work paved the way for subsequent literature about Sabrina. The drowned daughter of Locrinus. Our story begins with Brutus, an exile of Troy and the first king of Britain, who, upon his death, granted territory to his 3 sons, and his second in command. Locrinus, the firstborn son, was granted rulership of England. Campbell ruled the land beyond the River Severn to the west, known as Wales. Albanacatus took rulership of the northern lands of Scotland, and lastly, his second in command, Corneus, was gifted the kingdom of Cornwall. All seemed well under each ruler until Albanacticus was slain in battle by the invading Huns and their vicious leader Humber. However, his death united Locrinus's and Camber's kingdoms in opposition. After they emerged victorious, Locrinus discovered 3 damsels held captive among the spoils of war. One of these was no ordinary prisoner, but in fact a beautiful Germanic princess called Estildris. She proved irresistible to Locrinus, and he fell head over heels in love the moment he saw her. As with all stories involving such beauty, the distraction and seduction of the king would be sure to bring about the ruin of his kingdom. He could not contain his love for Estildris and treated her as if she were his own wife. But there was one little problem. The King of England was already betrothed to Gwendolen, the daughter of Corineus. As soon as he received word of this betrayal, Corineus was enraged and threatened Locrinus to honour his betrothal, or else he would feel the sharp end of an axe. Before the blow could be struck, Locrinus's men intervened and persuaded the King of England to honour his commitment to Gwendolen. Under the pretense of complying, the cunning king hid Estildris in an underground chamber for 7 years. This was said to be either by the River Thames in London or the River Severn in Chiusus. Regardless of the positioning, Locrinus made many journeys to see his beloved while claiming to be sequestered in prayer. Within the depths of the earth's embrace, he fathered a child, Hafren. Estildris' fruitfulness had provided an heir to the throne, and thus she became a living part of the land, buried deep beneath the soil until her power came to fruition through her beautiful child. Once Corineus had passed, Locrinus seized the opportunity to cast aside his old wife to be with Estildris and his daughter. But Gwendolen would not go quietly. She was a great woman, scorned and used her parental connections to seek out vengeance, to stop the usurping of the royal line by the bastard child. She summoned the men of Cornwall to declare war upon her husband, and the 2 armies met in a battle at the banks of the River Stour near London. They fought until the last of King Locrinus's war cries were uttered in his dying breath. However, Gwendolen was not content with the death of her unfaithful husband alone. To end her wrath, she commanded that both Estildris and her daughter Hafren be drowned in the River Severn. Some say the tragic event occurred in Dolforwyn, which to this day bears the name Maiden's Meadow, carrying forth the tragic notion of Gwendolen's merciless act. As an everlasting memorial to the youth, Gwendolen ensured the river bore her name as a symbol of her husband's unfaithfulness and infidelity. However, it is said that the spirits of the river took pity on the poor child, and with one kiss, snatched Hafren away from the grasp of death, and transformed her into the immortal goddess we know today. Birth of the goddess. Sabrina's tale does not end with her drowning, for the goddess has an alternative origin woven into the Welsh landscape itself. In this Celtic lore, Sabrina is untroubled by the undertakings of kings and instead concerns herself with the circulation of her waters through the hydrological cycle. It is uncertain where the tale originates, but it features prominently through the works of Bill Gwilliam, who gathered it from the 17th century antiquity Thomas Habington. The story also features in John Rees's work, where he recollects the story from his childhood. Here, Sabrina is not born of mortal blood, but birthed innumerable times alongside her sisters from the protective giant Pumlumon. Giants feature prominently throughout Wales, with various place names still carrying the memory of their ominous presence, especially near the mountains. Pumlumon itself is a distinctive area which forms the Cambrian Mountains. Alongside Eliniad and Muffin Maloid, Pumlumon can be translated to mean the 5 beacons, the tallest being Pumlon Vuor, which seems to touch the sky itself, forming a beautiful yet remote landscape free from human disturbance, beyond the occasional walker. It is here in the very heart of Wales, drenched with rain and filled with acidic soil and bogs, that the birth of the goddess occurs. Sabrina, or Hafren to invoke her Welsh name within the story, is born alongside Wai, also referred to as Gwir, or her Latin name Vaga, and Hydrological, to restore vitality to the land. Hydrological is sometimes interchanged with Ystwyth, depending on the adaptation of the tale, with both rivers merging during the end of their course towards the seaside town of Aberystwyth. However, poets have suggested that originally there were 5 water spirits, with Llyfant and Dulas, or alternatively Llyfant and Mynach, all of which make a vow to merge with the sea. No one knows why the other rivers were omitted, perhaps to reflect the importance of triplicity within the Celtic continuum. Regardless of the exact reasons, Sabrina's story is passed down to us as follows. Tears of a Giant. Up high in the mountains of Powys, the mighty giant Pumlumon, a formidable entity who contained the power of creation, cried 3 tears out of loneliness and frustration for the sight of the desolate lands that surrounded him. From these tears grew 3 strong and enchanting nymphs, nurtured under the protection of their father. Pumlumon loved these nymphs dearly and named them Hydrological, Hafren and Gwir. With each passing day, the nymphs grew stronger and more beautiful, but they could not quite surpass their yearning for the wild currents of the Celtic Sea. Understanding this desire, Pumlumon embraced them and sent them along their way with his blessing. Hydrological, the first daughter, rushed as quickly as possible, dancing her way merrily through Wales towards Aberystwyth to rejoin the sea as the first among her sisters. On the other hand, Gwir, the youngest of the 3 nymphs, took her time visiting the sights of the land, bringing tranquility with every step she took, meandering through the moorlands towards Chepstow, before eventually reaching the sea. Finally, Hafren, the fairest of them all, with her father's blessings, pursued her urge for knowledge and culture, taking the longest route through the countryside and the human kingdoms to learn their ways. The young nymph brought enchantment to the people who embraced her, and floods to those who dared to take advantage of her kind nature. Eventually, all 3 sisters converged in harmony and fulfillment together, discussing all that they had learned and seen along their travels. Their father was not saddened by their departure, for he knew that his daughters would soon return to him. Through the hydrological cycle, the 3 sisters ride gracefully upon the clouds to return to their father in the form of rain, with each eloquent droplet carrying the power of potential and creation. Once rejoined, the ethereal nymphs are reborn to continually flow from Pumlumon along their originally forged paths as the aquatic overseers of all life. Sabrina's lessons. We learn much from both these tales of Sabrina. As humans, we need stories. They provide a way for us to learn valuable moral lessons, the secrets to happiness, and allow a glimpse into all aspects of the human condition, granting us deep knowledge of ourselves. For anyone seeking to know the goddess, Sabrina's stories pave the foundations for forming relationships with her and give testament to how she has infatuated the imagination of the people and the land. Her drastically different origin points, where our empathy bleeds for the innocent and our admiration soars for the gift of liquid precipitation, might seem at first incompatible, but they are not irreconcilable, as they teach of the multifaceted nature of the goddess, imparting important lessons from both the corporeal and transcendent realm. Geoffrey's tale represents the dangers of political and geographical alliances, and how the unrestrained, lustful individuals in power often make life unbearable for those caught in the crossfire, a lesson that still rings true today. Sabrina's demise precedes her transformation into the goddess, a stunning example of apotheosis, and a testament to her divine power in the face of such misfortune. we see a glimpse of the mythological conflict that has shaped her lands, an essential aspect to understanding Sabrina. And we learn of the power of water to transcend fate, taking a powerless drowned youth and transforming her into a nymph who is adored to this day. Her Welsh origins are equally potent. The lore of the wild Blythe, water spirit, reveals to us the mysteries and connective force of water. She finds the course of least resistance, leaving her father to distribute beauty to Wales and the Welsh marshes before she traverses through to the sea. When it rains upon our brow, each droplet is a reminder that Sabrina is ever present and that we are never alone. Ultimately, our first encounters with the goddess are through myth and narrative. We learn much about her from these sources, and knowing a little more about her, we can now greet her as we would an old friend. But there is far more to be discovered just below the surface. You can learn more about Sabrina with our book, Pagan Portals Sabrina by Brett Hollyhead. Within the flow of the Severn, Britain's longest river, resides a goddess who, for millennia, has governed the cyclical nature of life and death in mythic and subtle ways. Whether known as Sabrina to the English or Hafren to the Welsh, this book is an invitation to dive deep into the currents of time to explore her identity and power. From the age of the Celts to the tragedies woven together by the medieval clerics, right up to the modern day, this book illuminates an ever-evolving, powerful divinity associated with boundaries, transformation, and magical salmon. Combining personal insight, lore, academic research, and exercises to connect to her waters, these pages traverse the historical tales of a goddess who is the heart and soul of the landscape. It's available from Moonbooks Publishing. Thank you so much for watching. A special thank you to our members. You too can become a member and gain early access to the Pagan Portal podcast and videos just like this one. For more details, tap the join button. Subscribe for weekly content, ring the bell to be notified of when we post, and we will see you next time.